Welcome to the presentation of Corporate Planning or CP. This presentation is focused on the sales controlling module. In sales controlling, we plan the sales. We plan the sales by planning the products and customers. The timeline of this presentation will be in line with the whole planning process, which starts with the actual import. And after that, based on the actual figures, we make the forecast for the rest of the year. Based on this forecast, the budget for the next year is created, and then that budget is edited in order to get the new targets. The final step is variance analysis, where we compare the actual and budgeted figures. So the first step that we're focusing on is the import of actual figures. In CP, you can import any type of database, whether it's an SQL database, Excel database, or if it's a direct connection to your ERP system. In this case, we will import one database that's created in Excel. And here in this database, we can see various figures that are related to sales, such as quantities, prices, revenues, gross margin, and we can also see the dimensions of these figures, such as categories, subcategories, products, suppliers, objects, and so on. We are creating a connection to this database in the CP software. We are importing the actual data, and I will now show you the import definition that you can create. You choose the database that you want to connect to, and after that you define some details that relate to this database, such as the rows that you will import, as well as the date that's available within the database. Then you decide which fields you will import, so you don't have to import the whole database. And we come to the part where you define which columns are to be imported and to relate to sales, and which columns will be related to products. On the left side, we have the sales tree, where we have various columns that relate to the sales or to the customer. On the right side, we have the products tree, where we have the dimensions that relate to the products. Then we choose the measures that we're going to import and link them to the columns in the database. We're choosing to import these measures, and all the other measures will be created within the CP. So we don't have to import both price, quantity, and sales, as we will get the sales as price multiplied by quantity. You can import as many measures as you want, and here you can add measures such as deductions, rebates, sales returns, and so on. We assign a currency that relates to this sales, and in this case it's euros. Also, we set up some additional technical details, and we choose the data stream that we want to use for this import. In this case, we are importing the actual figures, so I'm selecting the actual data stream. You can have as many data streams as you need, and you can have, for instance, budget, actual, and forecast, and as well as that you can have budget 1, budget 2, budget 3, and so on. You can also have various forecasts based on the moment that you create them. And you can add as many data streams as you want and change their name how it suits you. Once we create this connection to the database, we have the data available in the planning table. What we see right now is a planning table. In the upper part is everything that relates to the customer. So if I add here, for instance, region and city, I can see all the regions and cities that I have imported. The lower tree is related to the products. So if I add here categories and subcategories of products, we can see all the categories and subcategories that we have imported. In the lower part of the screen, there's the planning table. And in the planning table, right now, what we see are the quantities. I want to see any other measure, I can open this menu and select any other measure that I want to see. For instance, if I want to see quantities and sales, I can select sales and see both quantity and sales. Also, right now I'm in the January to December 2020, and if I want to see any other period, I can reduce this time slider to the period of, for instance, January to March 2020. And right now I will only see the January till March. As well as that, if I go back to the whole year, the other choice that I have is the data stream choice. So right now I'm looking at the actual figures for 2020, and if I choose budgeted figures, I will see what was the budget of 2020. I will go back to the actual figures and I will just choose to see the quantities. So right now we have the actual figures for the period January till September 2020, and we're looking at the sales of drinks, coffee and tea, and we see that sales for France, which is what we have selected up there, and we see by each city how was the sales of drinks, coffee and tea. The next step in the planning process is to create a forecast for the rest of the year. The forecast is created the way that we add actual figures for the first 9 months to the budgeted figures for the rest of the year, or for months 10 till 12. So right now we will do the same steps. I will create a forecast in a way that I will copy the whole actual figures to the forecast, where right now I don't have any values. So I will go and copy the quantities that I have in the actual, and as well as quantities I will also copy the prices. I'm copying this for the period of January till September, and I will copy that to the same period but in forecast. When I copy this data, I will get the figures in the forecast, and right now I have the same figures as I used to have in the actual. For the rest of the year, for the period of October till December, I don't have any figures yet, but I will use the budgeted figures for this period, and I will copy these budgeted figures to the forecast. And now I have the forecast for the rest of the year. When I open the whole year, I get the forecast for my whole company for the whole year. In the next step, I will create my budget for the next year as the forecast for the 2020 multiplied by 10%, as I'm planning to have a growth in sales of 10%. I'm going back to software, and right now I'm copying this forecast to the budget for the next year. This time I will just copy the quantities, and I will copy them in the next year's budget. The reason I'm copying only quantities is because I want to multiply the quantities by 1.1, or I want an increase in 10%. When I copy this to the next year's budget, what I'll get for the next year when I open the budget is the same figures that I used to have in the forecast, but multiplied by 10%. As well as this, I will copy the whole prices that I used to have in the previous year, and I will copy them the same as they were before. So I don't want to change the prices in the next year. I'm copying them to budget. And right now in the budget we have both quantities and we have prices. So the next step is to edit this budget. Or in other words, the next step is fine-tuning of the budget for the 2021. Let us start planning by regions. For each region, I have the managers that are responsible for if I, for instance, open one of the regions and I say I want to plan the sales for Belgium, then if I update the table, what I will see is the plan of sales for Belgium, and I see it by different salesmen. If I want to see how the sales for Belgium was planned by the product categories, I can rotate this table and see the whole sales for Belgium planned by the product categories. When I do planning, I will do the planning by salesman. So I will select the salesman and see how different categories were planned for this salesman. If I want to go further into details, I can add also subcategories, and as well as that I can add the suppliers. So if I open this subcategory, for instance meat and fish, and then I open one subcategory within it, I see how the cooked meat was planned for Benjamin and for the different suppliers of cooked meat products. So right now I'm starting to plan. For instance, I want to say that the planned value for this supplier, Carnex, for January 21 is not 979, but it will be 1000. I will start planning and enter 1000. So right now I have updated this value, and the whole value for the cooked meat has updated. As well as that, my whole plan for the year has updated in accordance with this change. If I don't want to plan on this level of details, what I can do is say that I'm planning the whole sales for the cooked meat to be 10,000, and I will enter here 10k, and I will get the planned values for the January 21 for cooked meat for Benjamin to be 10k. As well as that, the values for all the suppliers have updated, and the program has remembered the previous structure that used to have the previous distribution. If I don't want to plan this level of detail, but I want to plan the cooked meat for the whole period for Benjamin, then I can go to the whole time span and enter the new plan for the cooked meat. And let's say that we want to have the plan for the cooked meat to be 150k for the whole year. When I enter this figure spreads out through all the suppliers that I have down here, and it also spreads through all the months that we have in the columns. While it spreads, it remembers the previous distribution, so we will have the same seasonalities in data, and also we will have the same distribution across all the suppliers. If I now also add the products, and we see the products for this supplier, I can update just to see these values. We can see that this 68,000 that we had here is spread in this way. If I change this value to 80k, the distribution is remembered. So right now, if I don't want to plan this level of detail, but I want to plan the whole cooked meat, the value that I have planned for this supplier will be remembered. It will stay remembered. I can also open a table in a view like this and save this table for Benjamin to have it for planning. If I save this table, I will name it Benjamin. Planning table, and I will share it with Benjamin. When Benjamin opens CP, he can open the tables that he has available, and he can find his planning table here. So this was planning of categories by different managers. Let's do this vice versa. So let's say that we want to plan one category, for instance milk and milk products, and we want to regions. So I will select milk and milk products, and I will select all the regions. Also, I will rotate this figure. So right now we see the plan for milk and milk products, and we see various regions that we have here in the plan. So what I can do is start planning by each region. So I can say that for milk and milk products, I'm planning to, in Belgium, I'm planning to sell 30,000 in the next year. If I enter 30k, then I will get the new plan for the total for milk and milk products. If I want to plan the whole January, I can also say I'm planning 400k for the January 21, and then this value will spread to all my regions that I have here. Also, I can plan on aggregate level and say that I'm planning the sales of milk and milk products to be 4,600,000, and then I will get all the figures that are below updated. You can choose the distribution that you can have here. Right now we are choosing to spread the values across the structure according to existing distribution. And you can see that you can select various different options, such as spreading them evenly across the structure or entering the value into all add points. As well as that, the spread over time is typically according to existing distribution, but you can choose to spread some values evenly or over time if that suits you, or according to some other distribution curve that you defined previously. The final step of the planning process is the variance analysis, where we will compare the budget that we have created for 2021 to forecast of 2020. I will open another table where I will see two different streams. I want to see the budget that we have created for this year, and as well as that budget, I will select here the forecast for the previous year. Also, I will have two additional rows, and in these additional rows, I will add the forecast for the previous year. When I open this table, I can see how I have planned the sales. And what we have planned so far is a growth of 10.19%. We have started by planning the initial growth of 10%, and then we have edited the figures for one salesman and for categories of sales. So if I open the salesman that we have edited, Benjamin, and we see his figures, we can see that we have planned a growth of 12% for Benjamin so far. If we open the milk and milk products that we looked at as well and that we have also planned, we can see for Benjamin it's 10.55% for them, and we can see what's the variance here. If I want to save this table and to use it later, I can save this table as well as variance analysis. Make it public so that people from my organization can see what the variances are. When I open the web browser, I can see all the tables that I have created, and my salesman can see the tables that I have created for them. So I can open this table that I have created for Benjamin, and Benjamin can see only his figures here. And he can open this table here and edit the table and plan the new values that he wants to enter for the next year's budget. Once he enters these values here in the web browser or web client, then the values will be updated in the whole database, and me as a controller can have the new figures and new inputs ready in CP. Also, me as a controller can export the table that I have here in CP to Excel, and then I can use this table for the further analysis and further reporting. After I have created a sales plan in CP in the sales module, then I can export all the figures that I have for the whole sales, and I will export this total figure